Okay, welcome back to another author interview at Crystal Lake. Today, our guest is author Corey Niles, who has written a post-apocalyptic horror novel called What Remains. And I'm going to turn it over to him now and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. My name is Corey Niles. I am a gay horror writer who's originally from the Rust Belt. I recently, in the last few years, relocated to North Carolina. And yeah, I write a lot of horror.
Okay, so give everybody an overview of what the novel is about.
Yeah, so the novel, it is a post-apocalyptic horror novel. It focuses on Alexander and Sebastian. They're ex-boyfriends who are in this post-apocalyptic landscape where these mysterious undulating clouds are kind of overtaking the globe. And while that's happening, chaos is ensuing. Extremist religious groups are on the rise as they're wont to do. And yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the best kind of fun for horror
Oh,
fans.
yes.
So what were the inspirations behind the book?
Well, I think partially I really love reading survival horror, so that was a big aspect of it. And I would say the initial idea was the white, kind of these mysterious clouds. I mean, we see it a lot in horror fiction, the fog, the mist, and things like that. But there's always something coming out of them. So I kind of like this idea of it just consuming and us really not knowing what's going on in there. And so that was kind of the initial idea. Then in 2020, we had a global pandemic. And on top of that, I had a long relationship end. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's not the end of the world. You hear that line a lot. And at that time, it certainly felt like it in a lot of different ways. And yeah, that was kind of the initial idea. And then the what ifs kind of went from there. So, what if the world was ending? What if this relationship was pretty messy and now they're kind of the only person to depend on in this kind of end of the world scene? So that's really how it developed.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the characters. I mean, there must have been an interesting dynamic to have two exes as the protagonists. So how does their character arc develop?
Yeah, so we have Alexander as our narrator and kind of the main character of the book. He's a little more headstrong, a little more determined. And actually, his namesake is from, I have a Maine Coon cat named Alexander who shares a lot of similarities. When I was reading the character, I was like, this sounds familiar to someone. So that kind of idea was in my head. And then Sebastian is kind of the foil in a lot of ways. He's much more easygoing, he's much more present. And so exploring that kind of dichotomy when the stakes are this high was what I really found interesting while writing the book.
Okay, so you touched on this a little bit, but why did you want to write a post-apocalyptic horror novel? I mean, what is it about the genre that appeals to you? Do you enjoy reading it? Do you enjoy writing it?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the genre. I think my grandfather gave me The Stand before my teenage years, at a little bit of a young age. He was a big reader and this old biker, and he loved Stephen King. So that was in my mind from a young age. And then I just grew up, experiencing a lot of different survival horror video games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. And then naturally, there's a lot of fiction on the topic. I mean, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, things like that was kind of very fascinating to me. So that was always in the back of my mind. So it seems strange that it took me this long to kind of write a post-apocalyptic book.
So do you think that the dystopian post-apocalyptic sort of vibe goes well with horror? Because I know a lot of it sometimes veers into the sci-fi, but I think it also does well with horror. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of kind of connective tissue there between the genres. Something I like about horror is that a lot of times it works well kind of pairing with just about any genre. I mean, we see it as far as like romance. I mean, I've seen erotica, a little bit of everything there. And I think, for me, the only kind of difference is the focus. Naturally, science fiction, more oriented stories are a little more, I think, based kind of more in the theory or scientific element, or horror tends to focus more on, the emotion or the characters in these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I write horror fantasy, so yeah, horror does pair with a lot of things. So, so were there any themes or messages that you consciously set out to explore in the book?
Um, I don't think consciously. I mean, I think, I kind of put it all in the sandbox and had some fun with it. I would say rereading it, I initially wrote the draft in 2020. So rereading in recent years, I'm like, oh, there seems to be, a lot of, ideas concerning survival and, this idea of the survival of the self versus survival of humanity. So that was clearly very much on my mind, but I didn't certainly, set off to discuss that.
Yeah, themes do sometimes subconsciously creep into your book. I've done that a few times myself.
Oh, yeah, I'll have someone read it and be like, "You were talking about this." I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I was."
Yeah, one of my stories, a little commentary on capitalism snuck into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was a Little Mermaid retelling, so yeah, it
I love that.
so, what would you like your readers to take away from the novel?
Um, hmm, I would say that's a tough one because, at least for me, everyone brings their own kind of experiences and everything to the table with a book. So I don't know if I have a specific pinpoint. I mean, for me, something I love about horror is naturally it's these awful things, but there is that kind of catharsis because, we're taking things we experience every day and we're kind of amping them up to an 11. So I would say if you get anything, maybe it's that catharsis from kind of exploring survival that, we do every day when we get out of bed, but in a much grander scale when the world's ending.
So what's your favorite scene without giving spoilers in the book?
Yeah. I would say the last scene, which naturally I can't discuss too much. But other than the last scene, there's a section of the book that deals with a character named Debbie, who was actually based on a landlord I had at the time, who was a very interesting human being. She was running her own talk show no matter where she was. And I don't know, I think it added a nice kind of counterbalance to the heaviness of the book. So I ended up having a lot of fun writing that section, and I think I'm excited to see what people think of that one.
So I'm curious about Debbie. Did she
Yeah.
meet a bad end or things happen? Did her
Um,
little catharsis there?
well, she didn't have the best end, but Debbie in real life, she's always ending on top. She's doing great. I love her.
Okay. So yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we won't be mean to Debbie then.
Lovely lady. Is she watching right now? No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I'm just saying because landlords in general, I think sometimes get a bad rap. So it's just yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, some of the other ones, if they were in the book, they might have ended a little differently, but she was a fun one.
Okay, so did you find anything challenging about writing the book? Did a scene or a character give you any trouble?
Um, I would say characters always give me a little trouble, especially as they develop. I mean, when I initially start, I feel like they're developing with the story, and I'm a plotter. I love having a nice little outline, and then naturally the characters mess it up. As it goes along, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." So I
Yeah.
would say, that's something that's a little challenging but fun. I mean, with this one, I felt like it branched off in a lot of ways that, eventually I just kind of threw out the outline and kept going.
Yeah, I know that feeling about the characters. Yeah, I've had characters come and tell me, "Yep, we're villains. We're not nice characters. You have to go back and change all of that stuff
Oh,
now."
yeah. You're like, "Really now?" Yeah.
Yeah, and I had one story hijacked by an evil chicken for
Oh.
6 months.
Oh, wow, I'm gonna have to get the name of that one. That sounds
Yeah, that
amazing.
that book's actually coming out in November. It's the Tales of the Norse Gods is what it is. But yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna
I've got a whole video on the evil chicken for my
oh,
YouTube.
that's great.
So Is there a facet of writing fiction that's tricky for you in general?
Um, it's usually what to include. I'm a bloated writer, so I mean, even the first draft of What Remains is probably 3 times as long as what it ended up being. That whole idea of that we only see the top of the iceberg, but I get a little pedantic with the bottom when I'm writing. I'm like, "Oh, I need to know everything." And then naturally half of it never makes it, onto the page. But I think kind of paring it down is usually a difficulty for me. Yeah, and What Remains I try to kind of make it almost more episodic for the parts. It just seemed to fit well with this kind of drifter, place to place kind of story. So that definitely helped because then it's almost these little contained episodes throughout.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm an underwriter. I always have to add stuff to my story. So, have you branched out into other genres, or do you prefer writing just horror?
Horror is my first love. I mean, I think it probably best fits a lot of my stories that I write, but I'm certainly not always contained to it. I'd say usually I get the idea, start thinking of what's the worst character to be in that idea, and then write it from there. So kind of like what I said before, I think it blends well with a lot of genres. So I do like it in that respect because you can play with quite a bit there. But yeah, I've written a little bit all over. I mean, I think 2 years ago I wrote this supernatural romance that is sitting beautifully in my trunk and maybe will someday see the light of day. But I don't know, horror seems to have the best traction for me, so it usually is what ends up out there.
I'm curious, as someone who has tried romance and found that it's not good at writing it, did you have trouble writing the romance?
Oh, I mean, it's certainly probably awful, but I had a lot of fun writing it. But
Yeah, that kind of sums up my experience too. I had fun writing it, but it's awful.
that's what I was like. I don't know if any of this is romantic, but it sure is fun to write.
Yeah, I have great respect for romance writers because that is hard to write.
I feel like it gets a bad rap, but all the romance writer friends I know, they're really doing it.
Yeah, I mean, total respect for them because, yeah, if you haven't written it, it looks easy, but it's not.
Oh, oh no. Yeah.
So, what's your favorite aspect of being a writer?
I'd say probably the curiosity element. I'm a researcher at heart, so it is a great excuse to go into every, possible rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Even with What Remains, I mean, I got to dive a little more into science, which not all of it shows up on the page, but kind of researching like ecological disasters. And the main characters ride on a motorcycle throughout. So I learned quite a bit about motorcycles and their inner workings from a lot of nice men and women on YouTube. So I don't know, it's a fun element to me just to kind of keep learning new things and stuff like that. And then in the back of your mind, you can excuse it as this is totally gonna, go in the book.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent many hours researching and falling down those rabbit holes, and it ends up like one sentence in the book, but you have to know the background to write that
Oh
one
yeah,
sentence.
absolutely. That's it. I was looking. I was like, where did that theory go in here? I was like, oh no, okay, it's just subtly hinted.
Yeah, I mean, like I read a lot of historical stuff, so I mean, I have to know if someone's like I had a guy searching through a cabinet for something, and I had to know what that cabinet looked like. I mean, not much of the description went in the book, but I had to know, does it have drawers? Does it have cupboards? Does it what's it look like in order to know what he's searching? So yeah, there's a lot of research you have to go through when you're doing things like that. So I totally understand.
Oh yeah, and I love reading historical fiction, but it scares me a little because I think I get so minute. I'm like, did they have this word? Did they use this word? So I
Oh
get a little
yeah,
bit
you
off.
fall down those rabbit holes, definitely. Yeah, 'cause I just saw a video on YouTube where she said, I needed a horseshoe for the plot. And then I thought, did they have horseshoes? And to me, that summed up writing historical fiction perfectly.
Oh yeah, no, I love reading it, but I don't know if I could write it because I'd get so lost in the weeds.
So, who are some of your favorite authors? And is there anything special on your to read list this year?
Hmm. Um, I do bounce a bit around with genres. I mean, I'll read anything Tana French, Donna Tartt, Grady Hendrix, right? As far as this year with my to be read list, I'm really excited. Haley Piper has a game in yellow that looks very fascinating, and then Wendy Ann Wagner has the Girl in the Creek that looks really interesting. I don't know if you've seen the cover. It's this girl with mushrooms growing about it. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, some of those covers can really intrigue you, can't they?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so tell us about some of the other books you've written.
Um, so other than What Remains, I have one other novel. It's called Blood and Dirt. It's definitely more of a horror thriller. It's set in Pittsburgh, and it follows a gay couple who fall victim to a hate crime. And then weeks after one of their funerals, the person in question shows up again. And, chaos ensues, as it often does. And I also have a poetry collection called Death and Other Forms of Devotion. It it's kind of more of a queer religious horror collection. I actually wrote it at the same time as What Remains, so there's definitely a lot of connective tissue there for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I write poetry too. I have a few books out as well, and I also write. I write across the spectrum with the poetry, but I also write a horror poetry. I've got a couple of books of horror haiku out. So, how different for writing poetry is it for you for writing novels?
It does feel like a different aspect of the brain. I mean, I feel like something switches. If I go to switch back to fiction, I feel like I get too minute with, wording and sound. So I don't know. For me, it's much more visceral. I feel like I
Mm.
get a lot weirder in poetry than I do in fiction. My fiction's a little more buttoned up, to my poetry's like, oh wow.
Yeah, you can be a lot more fluid with the poetry, I think, and a lot more experimental. It's more forgiving than fiction with the experimental stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what are you currently working on, and what can readers expect from you in the future?
Well, last year I finished an eco horror poetry collection that it's entitled "In the Woods Only the Trees Hear You Scream," and it's forthcoming from Rooster Republic Press. So I'm excited for that one. This year I've been working on a novella that might end up being a novel because I never can shut up apparently. That's contained to a single apartment, and it's led me down a lot of research into modern mummification, which is very interesting, a lot of fun. And then otherwise, I have two other books within the world of What Remains that I kind of have tentatively planned out that I'm kind of excited to dive into.
Well, that sounds like readers have a lot to look forward to from you. So,
Mhm.
I think we'll
Yeah.
wrap the I think we'll wrap the interview up here. I'd like to thank you for being a guest. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and that's it for this episode. Bye for now, everybody.